Hello, 8th grade social studies. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have your notes for Chapter 4, Lesson 2, Colonial Government. So, we're going to talk about some principles of government that the English have given basically us, the United States. And as we go along, make sure you fill in the blanks that you need. First principle that we're going to talk about is protected rights. And this basically means that the government respects civil liberties or your rights. This could be protection against unjust punishments. It could be the right to a trial by jury. Or it could be basically some of the things that were contained in a document called the Magna Carta, which was signed by King John in the year 1215, which established this whole idea of limited government, but also the rights of the people. Representative government. This basically means that the people elect their delegates to go and make laws and conduct government. Now, in the colonial days, people would go to places like Colonial Williamsburg, which you see pictured below, and the lawmakers would represent the common people. The English had a kind of a history of calling their government Parliament. And Parliament was made up of two houses, the House of Lords, which is very similar to our United States Senate, and the House of Commons, which is kind of like our House of Representatives. Limited government. This is a political structure where laws limit the powers of the government to avoid abuse. An example of this would be the English Bill of Rights. English Bill of Rights talked a little bit about things like this idea of freedom of religion, freedom of press. It also got into talking about the fact that a government can't come in and take your property without compensation. So, what I think is interesting is as we start coming up with our own government here in the United States, we adopt a lot of these ideas from the English Bill of Rights and put them in our Bill of Rights in our U.S. Constitution. Let's talk about colonies. There are three types of colonies that we're going to focus on. First one is a charter colony. This is a colony that's established by a group of settlers who have been given a grant of rights and privileges to establish this government. Connecticut and Rhode Island are examples of a charter colony. You also have proprietor colonies. In the world of business, a proprietor is kind of like a lone single businessman. Um, Proprietor colonies are basically individuals or groups whom the British, the Great Britain, had granted land. And examples of that would be Delaware, Maryland, if you remember George Calvert, and Pennsylvania, if you remember William Penn. Finally, we have our royal colony. These are colonies that were controlled by the English king and parliament, and there are 7 royal colonies. You have Georgia, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, and Virginia. All right, English economic policies. Many European nations followed an idea called mercantilism. Mercantilism, or British mercantilism in this case, is a system for building wealth and power by building supplies of gold and silver. And to do this, you have to export or sell to other countries more than it imports or more than you buy. A country must also set up colonies in order to provide raw materials and to have markets. And so there's this kind of saying that the sun never sets on the British Empire because at its height and the practice of British mercantilism, it had colonies around the world where they could sell their products to and also use the raw materials to keep their economy afloat. England looked to the American colonies to provide raw materials such as tobacco, rice, lumber, fur, eventually cotton. The colonies would buy English manufactured goods such as tools and clothes and furniture. The Navigation Acts were passed by English Parliament in the 1650s. This was to control trade in the colonies, and as a result, many colonial merchants rebelled and began smuggling goods. Trade restrictions would cause conflicts between the American colonies and England. Thank you very much.